in a tragic accident that was witnessed by her 4 children. 49-year-old Carolyn Sanger of Topsfield, Massachusetts, slipped and fell to her death during a hiking trip to the Purgatory Chasm State Reservation in Sutton. The former oncology nurse and wellness business owner was exploring the site with her kids and other relatives when she lost her footing and fell 50 to 75 feet. Nearby hikers, who happened to have medical training, administered emergency aid, but Sanger was pronounced dead at the scene. Speaking with local news outlet Boston 25, family friend Tim Powley said that Sanger was on a scarier part of the trail when the accident took place, and that the family doesn't believe she was on her phone or distracted for any other reason. The investigation is ongoing, but authorities believe that Sanger's fall was entirely accidental. Number 14. Darious Smith. A pillar of Manhattan's Harlem community was shot to death by a stray bullet during a shootout, and one of the gunmen remains on the run while the other is facing charges in connection with the fatal incident. Police identified the victim as 61-year-old Xenia Mama Z Met, the proprietor of the city's first black and woman-owned bodega. She was shot in the head when she heard gunfire and ran outside to make sure her grandson was safe. Met was rushed to a nearby hospital where she was pronounced dead. Also at the scene was one of the 2 men who were exchanging gunfire, 23-year-old Darious Smith, who had been shot in the foot. He was treated for his injuries and is now facing charges of attempted murder and criminal possession of a firearm. At the time of the shooting, Smith was out on bail for a previous stabbing incident. He was accused of slashing 2 people with a box cutter during an attempted robbery in June of 2024. Smith is now being held without bail and the second gunman remains at large. Number 13. Mitchell Blake Reinacher. Shortly before 4 a.m. on Monday, April 21st, emergency personnel responded to a Lewisville, Texas home where longtime Denton County Commissioner and former Mayor Bobby Mitchell and her husband, Fred, had been stabbed by an intruder. 76-year-old Bobby was taken to the hospital in stable condition, but Fred died from his injuries. Also at the scene was one of the Mitchells' 9 grandchildren, 23-year-old Mitchell Blake Reinacher, who reportedly broke into the victim's home and told his grandparents he was going to kill them. According to court documents, Reinacher carried out the attack using a 6-inch serrated steak knife from the victim's kitchen. Police found his car parked 2 feet from the curb, with the headlights on and the driver's side door open, as if he had planned to make a quick getaway. Reinacher, who has had previous run-ins with the law, was taken into custody without incident but declined to speak with investigators. He's currently being detained without bail on charges of murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Number 12. 3 tragic plane crashes in 1 week. 3 deadly plane crashes have occurred throughout the United States over a roughly week-long period, starting with a small Cessna 180 that plunged into the Platte River in Fremont, Nebraska, on Friday, April 18th. All 3 aboard were killed. Authorities were notified of the crash by a quick-thinking 12-year-old witness, Paisley Fenner, who had never dialed 911 but wasted no time springing into action after discovering the wreck. The following day, another Cessna 180 aircraft went down in central Illinois after taking off from Menominee, Wisconsin, killing all 4 of its occupants. A witness described hearing a loud bang right before her home lost power, then seeing a huge pile of smoke outside her house. On Thursday, April 24th, famed aerobatic pilot Rob Holland crashed his plane and died while practicing for an air show at Langley Air Force Base in Hampton, Virginia. He was the only person aboard his small carbon-fire experimental aircraft when the plane went up in smoke and plunged to the ground. All 3 crashes remain under investigation as authorities work to determine the cause of each wreck. Number 11. Barak Tzach. 40-year-old father of 4, Barak Tzach, was tragically mauled to death by sharks while diving off the Israeli coast in Hadera. Heartbreaking footage of the incident shows the ill-fated diver flailing in the water and yelling for help as the sharks dragged him out to sea. Tzach's family told the Israeli National News that when the sharks got too close, he initially tried to fend them off with a GoPro stick. They said that he had gone into the water to dive and photograph the sharks, not to feed or play with them. A fisherman who witnessed the attack corroborated the family's account, stating that he had seen Tzach moving away from the sharks and photographing them from a distance. Nearly 24 hours after the attack, Tzach's remains were found amid a large-scale search for the missing diver's body. Shark attacks off Israel are exceedingly rare, with this incident marking the 3rd documented mauling in 80 years. While the breed of the sharks who attacked Tzach is unknown, marine experts believe they were likely dusky or sandbar sharks, which are known for swimming in the area. Number 10. Joseph Kling. A 19-year-old New Jersey man is facing criminal charges for allegedly starting a massive wildfire that destroyed 15,000 acres and caused thousands of residents to flee in the Pine Barrens region. Joseph Kling is accused of igniting the blaze in the Forked River Mountains wilderness area by failing to properly extinguish a bonfire. The flames spread rapidly, in the words of one official, like napalm, thus far consuming at least 15,000 acres and destroying at least one commercial building. According to the most recent available updates from the New Jersey Forest Fire Service, the fire is about 50% contained, but the danger isn't over and roughly a dozen structures remain under threat as firefighters continue working to douse the blaze. Kling faces charges of arson and aggravated arson. He's currently being held at the Ocean County Jail as he awaits a hearing to determine whether he'll be granted bond, which is scheduled for April 29th. He said very little during an initial virtual hearing and was polite to the judge, making sure to say thank you and have a nice day before he walked off screen. Number 9. Kevin Maddox. An Indiana murder suspect has walked free from jail after a judge dismissed the case due to a staffing crisis, leaving one family without the justice they've been seeking for nearly 2 decades. 48-year-old Kevin Maddox of Indianapolis and his alleged co-conspirator, 36-year-old Amber Brigham of Kokomo, are accused of fatally shooting 20-year-old Chad Rouse during a robbery gone wrong in 2006. In May of 2023, Maddox was indicted on murder, robbery, and conspiracy charges, while Brigham faces conspiracy robbery charges. At the time, Rouse's mother said that she had all but given up hope of justice being served and was afraid to believe it was finally happening. Unfortunately, her fear was not unfounded. The case was scheduled to go to trial in January of 2025 but was repeatedly delayed before ultimately being dismissed earlier this month. The judge dismissed the case without prejudice, which means that prosecutors have the option to retry the charges in the future, but he did not offer an explanation for the dismissal. Number 8. Deadly spring break car crash. A Florida spring break vacation took a deadly turn for 3 Massachusetts high school seniors who were killed in a horrific car crash in Panama City. The trio and a 4th passenger were driving along Highway 98 at around 9:30 p.m. on Monday, April 21st, when their SUV struck a tractor-trailer that was making a U-turn. The impact of the collision sent the SUV across the median and into a wooded area where the vehicle came to a stop. 18-year-olds Hannah Wasserman and Jimmy McIntosh were pronounced dead at the scene. Maisie O'Donnell succumbed to her injuries at a nearby hospital, where the 4th passenger is reportedly being treated for critical injuries. The 19-year-old tractor-trailer driver and his passenger were unharmed in the crash. McIntosh, who was driving at the time of the accident, was wearing his seatbelt. Police are working to determine whether the vehicle's other occupants were wearing their seatbelts, and the collision remains under investigation. Number 7. Taylor Valdez. 23-year-old Taylor Valdez is accused of beating his mother and her dog to death while performing a so-called exorcism and posting gruesome photos of the victims' bodies on Snapchat. Police were summoned to the family's Fort Worth, Texas home after someone saw the disturbing images and called 911. And officers arrived at the residence to find Valdez covered in blood and holding a Bible. He immediately sat down on the front porch and confessed to the killings. Inside the home's master bedroom, police found the slain body of 58-year-old Tacita Sason and her dog. Sason had obvious trauma to the face and upper body, and it appeared as though she may have been bludgeoned with a jewelry box, which had blood and hair stuck in it. Several of the accused killer's friends were at the scene and talked to the police, but Valdez refused to speak with law enforcement and requested an attorney. He's currently being held at the Tarrant County Jail on a murder charge with bond set at $750,000. Number 6. Alejandro Acosta Oliveros. A spate of unprovoked killings of domestic cats in Santa Ana, California has finally come to an end with the arrest of 45-year-old Alejandro Acosta Oliveros, who's suspected of abusing and killing upwards of a dozen felines. The arrest came after police released surveillance footage, which showed a hooded individual snatching a cat from between 2 parked cars. In another video, the suspect could be seen luring a cat into his grasp and fleeing in a white pickup truck. One social media post stated that the suspect could be seen tying the cat's legs, while another claimed that their neighbor's cat had been fatally poisoned. According to police, several witnesses and victims positively identified Oliveros as the alleged culprit. Additionally, officers uncovered evidence of the crimes during a search of the suspect's home, although the authorities did not go into detail about the nature of their findings. The accused serial cat killer is reportedly being held at the Santa Ana County Jail on felony animal cruelty charges. Number 5. Jordelia Pereira Barbosa. A 35-year-old Brazilian woman is facing criminal charges for sending poisoned chocolate Easter eggs to her ex-boyfriend's new partner, resulting in the death of a young boy and leaving 2 others in critical condition. According to reports, Jordelia Pereira Barbosa bought the candies at a supermarket while wearing a disguise and poisoned them herself. The eggs were delivered to the home of her love rival, 32-year-old Miriam Lira, along with a happy Easter note. The unsuspecting victim shared the gift with her children, including her 7-year-old son, Luis Silva, who fell ill immediately. He died the following day, while Lira and her 13-year-old daughter, Evelyn Fernanda, remain hospitalized while fighting for their lives. The poisoned eggs are currently undergoing testing to identify the toxic substance. In the meantime, investigators have uncovered evidence of Barbosa's responsibility for the poisoning, and they believe that she tried to poison the victim on at least one previous occasion. She has reportedly admitted to buying the chocolates but denied poisoning them and is accused of acting out of revenge and jealousy. Number 4. Josh Fitzpatrick. A former Charlottesville, Virginia weatherman is accused of secretly filming an intimate encounter and threatening to release the footage, and investigators believe there may be more victims. 42-year-old meteorologist Josh Fitzpatrick, who once worked at 29 News, was arrested on Tuesday, April 22nd in Gallia County, Ohio, where he reportedly relocated shortly after learning that he was under investigation and quitting his job. The probe into Fitzpatrick's alleged crimes began in February after the victim told police that Fitzpatrick had extorted them. While the encounter itself was consensual, the filming of it was not, resulted in felony charges against Fitzpatrick, including extortion and unlawful creation of an image of another. He remains in custody, pending his extradition to Virginia. In the meantime, law enforcement has urged anyone else who believes they may have been victimized to come forward. News of Fitzpatrick's arrest was covered by his former employer, but the station has not released a statement on the matter. Number 3. Moises Sandoval Mendoza. A convicted murderer in Texas who strangled and fatally stabbed a young mother more than 2 decades ago was executed by lethal injection at the state's Huntsville Penitentiary on Wednesday, April 23rd. 41-year-old Moises Sandoval Mendoza was convicted of the March 2004 murder of 20-year-old Rachel O'Neal Tolson, who was found dead 6 days after being abducted from her North Texas home. Unlike some death row inmates, Mendoza did not make a plea for his innocence during his final moments. Instead, he pleaded for forgiveness and apologized to the victims' relatives, calling them each out by name as they watched from the viewing gallery and waited for the execution to commence. Mendoza also shared some remorseful words with his family, who were seated in a separate viewing room, and a spiritual advisor prayed over him for 2 minutes before his punishment was carried out. According to reports, he could be heard loudly gasping twice as the injection began. He then began to snore and went completely still shortly thereafter. Mendoza was pronounced dead 19 minutes after the injection was administered. Number 2. Oscar Eduardo Ortega-Anguiano. 43-year-old Oscar Eduardo Ortega-Anguiano was drunk and driving at nearly 100 miles per hour when he struck another vehicle along a California freeway in November 2021, killing 19-year-old Anya Varfolomeev and her boyfriend, Nikolai Osokin. The young couple burned to death in the fiery wreck in Orange County, and many civilians were quick to argue that the deadly crash never would have happened if Ortega-Anguiano, an undocumented Mexican immigrant, had not been allowed to stay in the United States illegally. He has a long criminal record, and in 2022 he was convicted of 2 counts of gross vehicular manslaughter while intoxicated. Ortega-Anguiano was sentenced to a decade in prison, but will become eligible for parole in July after serving just 1/3 of his term. He's slated for deportation but has re-entered the US before after being deported, causing lingering fears that he'll make his way back into the country. Federal officials, including President Trump's border czar Tom Homan and U.S. Attorney for the Central California District Belial Esalai, have vowed to fight to keep Ortega-Anguiano in custody using a felony immigration statute, which could imprison him for up to 20 years in the event of a conviction. Number 1. Girl eaten by a lion. A teenage Kenyan girl was fatally mauled and eaten by a lion while her horrified friend watched helplessly at a residential compound on the outskirts of the nation's capital, Nairobi. In a statement, the Kenya Wildlife Service explained that the authorities learned of the attack from the victim's friend, prompting an immediate response by rangers and other emergency responders. Bloodstains led them to the Embagathi River, where they found the girl's lifeless body. Investigators believe the lion escaped from Nairobi National Park, which sits right next to the residential area that the girl was taken from. The park is bordered on 3 sides, but its south side is left open for migrating species. And while this occasionally leads to conflicts between humans and wildlife, fatal lion attacks on humans are reportedly rare. Following the recent killing, the KWS set traps and deployed search teams, but the offending lion remains at large. In the meantime, the agency has also taken additional measures to prevent another attack from happening.